right, good morning. My name is Alice Rodriguez, and I want to welcome you to the pre-bid for environmental services for the Merced to Fresno project section. Okay, next slide, please. Just let me go through the welcome and agenda. I'm going to be today's facilitator. I'm also going to go through some project overview slides, really high-level stuff. Ashley Missler is going to join us. She's our small business advocate and program manager. She'll give an overview of our small business program. Brett Rushing, Cultural Resources Program Manager, will give us an overview of the procurement. And then Lisa Crowfoot, Attorney 4, out of our legal office, will give an organizational conflicts of interest overview. Okay, next slide, please. Before we jump in, I wanted to show you some of the resources that are available for you to learn more about this procurement. You can go to our webpage, there's a link there, or you can go, the path would be to go to hsr.ca.gov, that's our homepage, then select business opportunities, then contractors, and then this particular procurement has its own webpage, and that's the link. You select environmental services for Merced to Fresno. After the conclusion of this webinar, a video of this presentation will be listed there. So will the PowerPoint and the list of all of the registrants. Excuse me. You can also find more information about this procurement at Calia Procure, and there's the link for that as well. And the webpage will include responses to questions and any updates that come out about the RFQ. And you can submit questions to capitalprocurement@hsr.ca.gov, and questions are going to be due by Tuesday, December 20th. Thanks. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to dive into just a few slides to give you a little overview of our program and a little bit of our progress. Next slide, please. Okay, so our mission is to initiate the construction of a high-speed train system that utilizes an alignment and technology capable of speeds of up to 200 miles per hour or greater. First phase is about 500 miles, 494, from downtown Los Angeles, from downtown San Francisco to Los Angeles and then down to Anaheim as well. Phase 2 will extend another 300 miles, and that will connect to the north in Sacramento and to the south in San Diego. And again, our travel speeds are going to be up to 220 miles per hour and up to 24 stations in the system. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have 3 project sections. I'm going to start here in the middle. Central Valley, we call that our initial operating segment that we're working on. Currently, there's 119 miles of active construction. It is 100% environmentally cleared, and we are doing early design work for the extensions up to Merced and to Bakersfield and for our stations. Next year, we expect to release procurements for track systems and train procurement. And the goal is to have that section operational by the end of the decade, 2030. Next slide, please. Okay, so in Northern California in the Bay Area, we have 159 miles, 100% environmentally cleared. We're going to be hopefully eligible to do some advanced design work for that this coming year. There is an electrification project for Caltrain that's already under construction. And then our goal here is to advance design work in 2023 and identify shared corridor early capital investments and develop funding plan options for that section. Next slide, please. And we'll go down to Southern California. 164 miles, 56% of that is environmentally cleared. Or some advanced design work could begin next year, that's our hope. And our goal is to complete all environmental, begin advanced design in 2023, identified shared corridors, and early capital investments and development segment funding plans, just like in the Northern California section. Okay, next slide, please. And just a little bit about program update. There is already a lot of active construction, like I mentioned before, 9,800 labor jobs created so far. We have about 34 active sites right now. Our small business, which we'll learn more about with Ashley's slides, we've already employed 739. And again, we'll talk more in detail about that. And then leading in sustainability. The system will run on 100% renewable energy. We are currently using Tier 4 construction equipment. And once the system is operational, it'll be like taking 400,000 cars off the road annually. Okay, next slide. I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Thank you, Alice. Good morning, everyone. I am Ashley Missler, and I oversee the small business program and your point of contact for all your small business needs. My contact information is located on the bottom of this slide. Next slide, please. So as many of you are aware, and Alice touched on momentarily ago, the authority has a aggressive 30% overall small business goal. 10% of that is for disadvantaged business. 3% is for disabled veteran business enterprises. And we already have a good number that are performing on the contract, a total of 739 that you will see that come from all over the state as this map designates where they're essentially located. It also, we have 25 that are performing outside of the state. In order to meet your goal in accordance to our small business program, you will need to designate a small business officer that is responsible for being the point of contact for all things small business related. And that person will essentially work with my team very closely. For example, if there is a need to host a workshop, or if you'd like to garner interest for any procurements that you're going to be putting out, or task orders that need completed, you would partner with us and we can help share that media. It's also very important that you follow the protocol for adding small businesses to your project and that you're using a small business that has been approved to work on the project. If you're looking for more businesses to do work on the project, you can also leverage my team and they'll be happy to partner with you to do workshops and to try to help you find qualified businesses to perform on the contract. Next slide, please. Okay, so the authority is committed to diversity, but we are not a certifying agency. We actually partner with a couple of different agencies listed here to utilize their certification designations. So anytime you want to bring a business on board, they have to be certified with these departments here, and their certifications must be current and valid during the beginning of the contract and throughout the duration of the contract. You want to make sure that throughout the time that your small business are performing on a contract, that their certifications are continuously up to date. Most of these certifications listed here carry about a 1 to 2 year term before they need to renew, but it's their responsibility to make sure that their certifications are current. So the California Department of General Services, DGS, offers the small business certification, the micro business certification, and the new small business public works, SBPW, which includes firms who specifically work on public work contracts. These are generally larger firms that have graduated out of the smaller business program. So if you have firms that historically worked on the project in the past and are no longer qualified, the SBPW would be a great option. It actually goes up to 36 million gross annual receipts, and they can still qualify as a small business. DGS also offers the Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise Cert, also known as the DVBE. The next bullet is the California Unified Certification Program, CUCP, which is a disadvantaged enterprise certification offered by a consortium of agencies throughout California. Caltrans is the agency in Sacramento that offers this certification statewide, but there are various other agencies that offer it, including in the Bay Area and Southern California. So businesses essentially are able to choose the agency that's in their region and partner with CUCP to get certified. Just as a reminder, if you have any firms that are trying to join your team with this certification, just please let them know that it takes months to get certified. The other certifications we accept, the last bullet, are 8A Disadvantaged Business Program certification, and that comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and also the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business, SCVSOB, VOSB, and the Veteran-Owned Small Business, VSB, from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. Please keep in mind that anything federal is going to take longer to process, but these certifications here are the only certifications that we accept at High Speed Rail, and they do have to be certified at the time that they're brought onto the contract, during execution, and throughout the duration of the contract. Next slide, please. HSR has no prohibition against subconsultants or subcontractors being exclusive to one offeror or the next, but we do strongly discourage this practice for SB, DBE, and DVBE subs. Next slide, please. So this slide covers our Connect HSR vendor registry. We encourage all businesses to register with Connect HSR. It's free, online, and simple to complete. If you send your business to the site to register, they will always be notified of opportunities and workshops on the project. Oftentimes, we find that these businesses are struggling with certain things, so our team will hold events and have guest appearances from, let's say, Department of Industrial Relations to do workshops on certified payroll. We might host a certified workshop with DGS, our Department of Transportation. There's all kinds of opportunities to bring your businesses on the project and learn about HSR and how we do business. And then just industry information that'll be listed here on our site, and any things that we want to share with the small business community, again, will come through this registry site. So we do encourage businesses to join and register. I think we have about 4,000 currently registered on Connect HSR approximately. So if you need more information on getting registered, please reach out to me and I will put you in contact with someone from my team that can help with the process. I will place my email in the chat, and I wanted to thank you all for your time today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Next slide, please. Okay, I will pass the mic over to Brett. Thank you everyone for your time. Have a great day.
Good afternoon. My name is Brett Rushing. I'm the Environmental Services. I'm with the Environmental Services branch at the High Speed Rail Authority. The Environmental Services branch supports project delivery and promotes consistency and compliance in planning, permitting, public outreach, and securing state and federal funding for the environmental phase of our project, including construction. So the Environmental Services branch in the Valley is responsible for supporting infrastructure delivery, both in permit compliance and through CEQA and NEPA supplemental documentation and supplemental permitting necessary to address project changes. Next slide, please. We can skip to the next, please. All right. So to continue facilitation of design and construction of the high-speed rail system, the scope of work for the procurement and the resulting agreement includes as-needed environmental services, engineering services necessary to support the environmental work, and related specialized professional services necessary to provide environmental clearance. The work is more fully described in the RFQ and includes, but is not limited to, environmental impact analysis, CEQA and NEPA compliance and documentation, environmental reexaminations, permitting, mitigation planning, and environmental compliance during construction, as well as supporting authority analysis and communication on endangered species with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service and the California Department of Fish and Game, reviewing design builder geotechnical reports and environmental compliance activities in support of authority property management. The work included in this agreement encompasses the Merced to Fresno project section and will augment authority and other staff resources. The project section is defined as the 2012 Merced to Fresno Certified Environmental Impact Report, Environmental Impact Statement, and as revised by any supplemental environmental reviews such as addenda, reevaluations, reexaminations, etc. The not to exceed dollar value for this agreement is $3 million with a 3-year term. At the authority's sole discretion, the agreement may be amended to add 2 years and an additional $2 million to the contract. Next slide, please. So the on-call contractor will perform work where others are unable or not capable of completing the task, and these tasks include environmental impact analysis services, which may include support for the lead agency compliance review of CEQA and NEPA documents, environmental studies and report writing, and the necessary permits or permit amendments to keep the construction activities progressing without delay. While the on-call contractor may be asked to perform some of the larger documents and analysis noted in these first 8 bullets, historically, most efforts committed to doing the re-examination work and corresponding permit amendments. Next slide, please. So that's okay. Yeah, we should be on 19. Yep. There we go. Engineering and design work under this agreement will be limited to work necessary to support the environmental, studies. A sufficient level of design is required to prove feasibility of concept and justification of footprint during the environmental process. It may include preparation of preliminary engineering design plans and drawings for a variety of project features such as the alignment, grade crossings and roadways, maintenance facilities, etc., listed here. The authority continues to advance construction in the Central Valley and we'll be seeking it to advance design on stations and ancillary facilities such as solar generation infrastructure. These activities all require environmental compliance, permitting, and support. The work under this agreement will be performed by written executed task orders. The consultant shall not invoice the authority for services or costs that are not included in the executed task order. All right, next slide. So the preparation of the deliverables that we need in environmental and we need support, such as reexaminations. Each of the areas listed on this slide and the next will be necessary to be analyzed. So some areas, I'm not going to list them all, but a few areas of particular interest here are the environmental justice, cultural resources, air quality analysis, biological resources, and hydrology and water resources. Next slide. So as a result of project changes or additions, there will be need to analyze impacts for compensatory mitigation. The authority will need to understand not only their environmental impacts of a change, but the likely costs associated with the mitigating those impacts when and where appropriate. The on-call contractor could be called on to collect environmental impact data associated with construction activities and help inform other internal stakeholders such as sustainability with their envision verification program. The authority also depends heavily on our GIS data and the collation of that data into program-wide systems. The on-call contractor will be required to produce accurate GIS shape files to depict NEPA CEQA footprint changes or permit-specific impact analysis and corresponding footprint files. The on-call contractor must be appropriately organized and staffed for the work with experienced personnel in key roles. So those key roles include project manager, the environmental manager, a quality manager, and a permitting manager. Next slide, please. So this is an architectural and engineering qualification-based request for qualifications procurement. The authority will enter into limited negotiations with the top-ranked offerer, and the contract fees and costs must be determined to be reasonable. The fee percentage is subject to negotiation in accordance with the RFQ, and the pre-award review will be conducted concurrently with negotiations prior to execution. Next slide. Environmental, social, and governance efforts, which may include any environmental sustainability efforts, socioeconomic equity policies, and governance policies will be incorporated as a pass-fail requirement in the request for qualifications. And the small business, disadvantaged business enterprise, and disabled veteran business enterprise utilization goals are also included in the agreement requirements. There is as Ashley mentioned, there's a 30% small business utilization goal, inclusive of 10% DBE utilization goal and 3% DBBE utilization goal. And next slide, please. So here are the key RFQ dates to be aware of. The RFQ was advertised on December 6th. Questions can be submitted until December 20th, and statement of qualifications are due by 12 p.m. on January 18th of 2023. The contract award notification will occur on Friday, February the 10th, with a notice to proceed sometime in March 2023. So thanks for your interest. This is in this important contract, and I'll now pass it over to Lisa Crowfoot. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. My name is Lisa Crowfoot, and I'm an attorney with the authority's in-house legal team. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our organizational conflict of interest policy to hopefully explain it a little bit, the purpose of it, and hopefully dispel any concerns that you might have. For those of you who work with public entities, this will probably be familiar, but for those who do not, and this is the first time hearing about this, hopefully it'll give you a good background. First slide, next slide. So the authority requires that any entity entering into a contract with it comply with its organizational conflict of interest policy. You would have seen a link to it and e-procure and as part of the RFQ. And the reason that our organizational conflict of interest policy is necessary is because our federal grants require it, and because we also want to ensure a fair and transparent procurement process that maximizes competition and minimizes exposure for bid protests. This policy is also in compliance with state and federal procurement laws. And we've got a little quote here from the United States Supreme Court, which recognizes why these types of policies have to be so broad. And really the breadth embodies a recognition of the fact that an impairment or impartial judgment can occur even with the most well-meaning men and women when their personal economic interests are affected by the business that they transact with the government. Next slide. The authority's organizational conflict of interest policy defines it as any circumstance arising out of a contractor's existing or past activities. So that's an important piece of this, existing or past activities, business or financial interests, familial relationships, contractual relationships, and the organizational structure that could result in an impairment or a potential impairment of a contractor's ability to render impartial assistance or advice to the authority, or that can result in an unfair competitive advantage for any contractor bidding or proposing on an authority procurement. And it's important here to notice that we really care about the perception or appearance of impropriety in addition to an actual situation of impropriety. And so this is regardless of whether the perception is accurate or not, you want to look at whether there could be a perception of impropriety. Next slide. Two general situations which are fairly common where conflict of interest might be found is where a contractor has an unfair competitive advantage. An example of this might be when a contractor has access to non-public information about a procurement, or if a contractor has provided services to the authority in the development of the procurement and then intends to bid on it. Another situation is where a contractor's objectivity in performing its contractual obligations to the authority would be compromised such that it could not provide impartial assistance. And kind of the standard example here is where a contractor under contract A is in a position to oversee its own work or direct its own work or create more work for itself under contract B, and we can't mitigate. Next slide. A misperception about conflict of interest policies is that contractors are conflicted out simply because they've done prior work for the project or for the authority, and that is not true. The vast majority of conflict determinations find that a contractor may participate in the desired procurement and contract, sometimes with some type of mitigation. If a potential conflict is recognized, the policy gives us some flexibility, and it requires consideration of numerous factors to determine whether the contractor may participate and whether mitigation or safeguards might be helpful to avoid any type of conflict. And so it's frequent that we will apply some sort of mitigations if there's a conflict that does come up, such as ethical walls to protect against conflict scenarios. And really the flexibility of the policy recognizes that the authority has goals that must be balanced. We don't want to unnecessarily restrict the pool of potential proposers. And we also want to protect the interests of both the procurement process and the authority. Next slide. If you have any concerns, it's better to reach out and ask for a conflict determination than to make a presumption. So on this slide and also in eProcure and in the RFQ document itself, you'll see that you could send a request for a conflict determination to our Chief Counsel, Alicia Fowler, at her email. And what that process looks like is once we receive your request, we will probably reach out and ask for additional information, such as, what contracts have you had with the authority previously, who's working on those contracts. Our office will then make a determination that will come in a formal letter to you from our Chief Counsel. And if there's a disagreement, you can reach out and raise any additional relevant facts and information. And that is the end of the conflict of interest presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to Chief Counsel Alicia Fowler at the email provided. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Ashley, as well. Justin, if you can go to the next slide. There we go. Last slide here. Just a reminder, questions regarding this procurement can be emailed to capitalprocurement@hsr.ca.gov. Again, those questions are due by next Tuesday, the 20th. Registration list, pre-bid video, the PowerPoint will be posted on the webpage that I mentioned earlier. Again, if you go to our homepage, select business opportunities, and then under contractors, you'll see it there listed. Responses to the questions and requests for qualification updates will be posted to the California State Contracts Register. And there's a link again at the bottom of the page for the webpage. And with that, I'll say thank you for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.